Our second stop in China is the city of Xi'an, and after a late night arrival by bullet train, our tour guide today is Kenneth. After another big breakfast at our hotel, we head off to our first stop, the Big Wild Goose Pagoda, where we meet our very talented specialist guide Li Chen.
We call this is the Wu Temple. You know, the Wu in Chinese means nothing, Lo means worries. Let's say when we enter the temple, no worries. Pagoda is Tang Dynasty, 1300 years, but it's a little bit leaning, like the Pisa Tower. Because of the earthquake and overused underground water, so the pagoda leaning. And here we can see the bell tower and the drum tower. In ancient times, we have no watch, no clock. So every morning, 4 a.m., the bell, we wake up the monks. And at 9 p.m., the drum asks the monks go to bed. And we still use the bell and the drum every day because this active temple. We have the 50 monks still living in our temple, the local monks. Yes. And now, inside the bell tower, that is a 460 years old a big bell. It weighs 15 tons. So this is the huge bell. The male one always be put on the left side, and the female always on the right side. The mother and the baby. This for the yin and the yang, yin-yang balance. Also very easy to remember, because in the feng shui culture, we think in the family, lady is always right, so on the right side. Yes.
Outside the Buddhist temple was a place to light candles and incense. We were told they light 3 incense sticks and bow 3 times to help them focus their meditations and honor Buddha.
These are carved jade reliefs of the different incarnations of Buddha. The next room is covered with murals, all carved out of jade.
And in this room, over the 30 artists, 3 years carving, and finished the carving in 1999. So this is the new one here. And it illustrating the stories about the Buddha's enlightenment. This is the whole life of the Buddha. And all the beautiful jade carving and all the nature colored jade, just except the people's lips, the eyes, and the hair, they paint the colors. Others, we can see the pink, orange, and bronze, all the nature colored jade.
One thing he made sure to point out was that the symbol on the chest of the Buddha was not a swastika. It is actually a mirror image of the symbol used by the Nazis. This is early Buddhist scripture from India. It is over 1,300 years old, but there's only a handful of people in the world that can still read it.
There's also an art studio within the temple. Li Chen gave us some background on Chinese painting and calligraphy. He started off by giving us information on the brushes used.
This is the wolf's hair brush. This is the sheep, the goat hair. Sometimes we also can use the baby's hair and a gentleman's beard, different resilience. And in my opinion, I think the brush sometimes for the ladies to make up. And the next one is the color, the ink sticks. The colored ink sticks is made of the pine tree's resin, the vegetable oil and the mineral. Different mineral to make them different colors. Yes, and the mineral is also from the nature. Fourthly, this is the ink stone, the slab. We get some water on the stone here. Then use the sticks to rub, round and round. And the water, the color is darker and darker, so we call it watercolor. The most important that is the rice paper. But it's not made of rice, so don't eat it, just touch it, okay? This is made of the straw of the rice. Why the colors can last so long time? So the colors, it's go inside the paper, it's not on the surface. So this is the rice paper. Mm-hmm. Yes, can last a very long time. And now here, I will show us some Chinese calligraphy art. Yes, it's easy to understand and recognize and really happy with, okay? So the Chinese characters in the ancient times look like the paintings. Now you see this the pictograph. Can you tell me what does it look like?
Like a little duck or a little
Yeah.
The duck or the bird just sitting on the nest. This is the bird on the nest. It's the Chinese Asian character. This is the west direction, east and west. The sun set off in the west. When the sun set off, the bird and the duck back to the nest have rest. So the bird on the nest is the west, but it's very old, about the 3,000 or 4,000 years history. And the modern times, the west, different. It's the modern west. We can see just the square nest from this part. This is the bird without the head. Yes. So we think the bird is gone, flew away. And in Chinese, the west, they are the same pronunciation. We read the west. This is the Xi means west. What's your name, madam?
Mary Ann.
Mary Ann. Thank you.
So that's your stamp?
There's the stamp. Make it official, okay? So it's the Chinese, the Mary Ann. The May in Chinese means the beautiful plum flower. I've mentioned only bloom for the ladies flower. The beauty, the pretty, the sweet, the happy life, okay? So it's the May. And the Ri in Chinese means the beautiful flowers just the blooming. Yes, and then the An, like the Xi'an, means the peaceful and harmonious, happy life. So like the beautiful flowers just the blooming, you get the peaceful, harmonious, the happy life, Mary Ann, in Chinese meaning. And the two stamps, these are our temple stamps, the pagoda here. This is the artist's name, remember the artist, Li Jun. My name is Li Jun, very popular in China in the future, okay? And my signature here tell us this is the when and the where, by whom do this. This is the year of the dog, zodiac animal, dog year in China this year. And in Xi'an, our city, and Li Jun, my name, only one stroke finish the whole sentence, no break, no stop. Not every Chinese can do like this. So the souvenir for the Marian.
Thank you.
So the Chinese, the victor. We in Chinese means the great. And the Ke means powerful and overcome all the difficulties and successful. Te means the special and unique. The special, unique, the powerful and successful, the great victor. Yes. My pleasure.
Before we go see the Terracotta Warriors, we stop at a workshop that makes replicas for use in hotels and other displays. This gives us a background on how the original statues were made. These figures are made in 4 parts: legs and feet, body, hands, and head. To help keep the clay moist, the workshops are actually carved into the hillside, forming man-made caves.
So he's official because a square hat. The general have the butterfly hat. The infantry single here now, no hat.
She's doing this freehand, or this isn't from a mold?
A mold.
It's from a mold, and
Mold
she's doing
first,
the fine
yeah,
details.
After mold, but still rough. So
Okay.
they make it do details.
These are the kilns, packed with figures cooling off after being fired. The final step, an aged finish. The owner was also in the process of building a hotel on the site, but after getting approval, there was a question on whether the government would allow them to finish.
Upon arriving at the complex, we entered a building. It contains a large excavation consisting of an estimated 6,000 warriors and horses, and is referred to as Pit 1.
Unlike what we saw at the workshop, every one is distinctly unique. The statues were found in long pits, representing standing armies. These columns of soldiers were covered in a wooden framework and then buried. But the poor condition in which they were originally found points back to the Emperor Shang Yu. It is thought that around 230 BC, he had his men dig into the pits, stealing the weapons and setting fire to the wooden structures, causing them to collapse.
Kenneth also told us that the hairstyles and headdresses represented the different ranks of the soldiers, and the quality of them indicated whether or not they were married.
The archaeologists worked right on site, painstakingly putting together each individual piece to reform the soldiers. Nearby is Pit 2. It's smaller than Pit 1, but contains a larger variety of soldiers, including infantry, cavalry, chariots, and archers. On display in the museum is an archer that was recovered undamaged. You can even see remnants of paint that was used to decorate its armor. After having a large lunch, we went to the Bayman Muslin Market for more food. Kenneth told us we had to try one of these Chinese hamburgers. It's a pocket bread filled with shredded beef and spices. Since we were already stuffed to the gills, we split one just to try it. Another thing we saw everywhere were pomegranates and fresh pomegranate juice. And of course, we had to try some. Kenneth also bought us a warm persimmon cake, a sweet dessert. This is a giant cake, cut up into hundreds of single-serving portions. Here they're pounding sugar into a taffy. And of course, there's always the candy made with seeds and nuts. Payday.
Yeah, that looks good.
After being dropped off at the hotel, we walked by the spectacular drum tower on the way to the metro. We're going to see the fountain show outside the Big Wild Goose Pagoda. Our guide today is Jacob, and we're heading towards Xi'an's 8.7-mile city walls, where we're going to be taking a 2-hour bike ride.
The wall's about 40 foot tall and 40 foot wide, with a large moat around it, which is now used for gardens and parks. It wasn't very crowded and looked level, but you could tell there was a grade.
While on our ride, we saw an open-air market and food court. We looked it up on Google Maps, and it said it was the Yangjing Fang Market. Once we finished our ride and met back up with Jacob, we told him about the market, and he asked if we wanted to have lunch there. Being the type of place we enjoy, we took him up on his offer. One of the first things we saw was a pile of broken pottery. Jacob said it was a tradition, where you drank a cup of rice wine, and then smashed the container to ward off evil spirits. One thing you can smell from a distance is this fermented, stinky tofu. It's actually quite good, if you can get past the smell. Sesame seeds and peanuts. These people are pounding a dough to be used to make dumplings. There was a large variety of food here, and it seemed like we enjoyed a lot of it, including mulberry juice and a rice wine served with actual rice in the bottom of the cup. After ordering us some lunch in a noodle shop, Jacob went out and returned with some additional treats, including this barbecued lamb skewered on a twig. Overall, we thought this lunch was a lot more interesting and tasty than if we went to a restaurant. Our original plan was to visit the Hanyang Tomb Museum, but since our flight was changed from 7 to 10, we didn't want to wait at the airport those extra hours, so instead we visited the Damying Palace Heritage Museum. Out in front, they were recording some sort of a performance. Jacob's guess it was for some sort of corporate video. They definitely weren't professionals. This area used to be the large Damying Palace.
We started out by seeing a 3D movie. It was a historical depiction of a Persian prince who fell in love with Mingyu, a Chinese princess. After proving his worthiness in several battles, they married and returned to Persia.
This is a large model of what the temple complex looked like during the Tang Dynasty. Even the trees were trimmed to keep them in proportion. The original palace was very large, over 4.5 times the size of the Imperial Palace in Beijing. With our flight delayed even further, we arrived at our hotel about 1 in the morning. At our next destination, the incredible mountains of Zhangjiajie.